Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrator's Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Mayo. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, how are you, David? You know, I watched the opening, and had a lot less gray hair back then. Well, that's an old opening, so
we may need to
update
that opening now. Yeah.
Oh, no. Maybe I'll update myself. It's better.
A little bit of Grecian formula. Or something. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So we're going to have a little bit of a potpourri, but first, this weekend, and I know the item covered it Monday night, but I don't know how many people are out there reading the item these days. This weekend, Facebook lit up a little bit with wondering what's going on with the Greenwood Fire Station. This has been an issue over the years. There have been some near closures, and basically, you know, those of us who live in Greenwood were extremely upset about that. What's going on with the firehouse?
Well, this is certainly not a closure or a near closure. There's nothing like that. We are fully staffed and fully budgeted to keep the Greenwood Fire Station open this year, and I would assume for many, many years to come. But we do need some work. We have some work we need to do there. There was some asbestos that needed to be removed, and certainly we can't have firefighters or employees of any type in an atmosphere when we're removing asbestos. That building was built in 1962. For any of you that have done work at your home, you know what 1962 is. There's a lot of lath, sheetrock. There is a bathroom floor that probably has 12 to 14 inches of concrete in it that needs to be dug up to make some changes there. So we are doing some updating. We want to get the firefighters back in there as quickly as possible. Chief is very concerned about it. The firefighters themselves are very concerned about it. I am, as is the Board of Selectmen. But we also want to make sure that while we're doing this work there, and I'll tell you why we're doing it in a second, is that when you open up an old building especially, you find things that you need to do. And when it's opened up, let's do them now.
Right.
You know, let's do them now. So what was a very narrow scope, we may want to broaden a little bit to handle some things that like HVAC issues and some heating issues that, geez, we really should have been doing anyway. So I should do anyway, but that's more evident when you open it up. So that's what's going on. I'm working very closely with the union and the chief, as is our DPW director, Rick Stinson. So I'm hopeful to get them back there at any time, at very quickly, and hopefully by July 1st, which is a couple of weeks away at this point. However, if we find that as we're going in there, and we're going to be able to make that call in the next few days, that we're going to be extending the time because of work that should be done there, then we're going to have to make other arrangements to get them in the Greenwood area, a trailer or something like that. It's very important that we make sure we service that part of the community, especially during, well, all the time, because you never know when something's going to happen.
Right.
But especially during when it's times to get a little bit harder to get across town, the Galvin's getting out and what have you. So we're aware of it. We're not happy about it, but I think the Chief Sullivan said it best in the newspaper that, you know, we are going to make the best of it, and that's what we're doing. So all those fears should be gone. No one's fought harder than I have over the years to keep that fire station open. In 2008, it was really when the state cut our money, and you know, it was much more on the brink than it had been in a long time. And so that I want to allay those fears. That's not going to happen.
What has happened? The trucks are out of there.
Yeah.
They're up at the main.
The truck, the engine 2 is at the main office for the most part. But there are times that we'll just have main 2 down. We'll have engine 2 down there in Greenwood. You know, during times when it's a little harder to get over town, just kind of staked out there, which is not unusual. We do that on the 4th of July. On the 4th of July, we have a fire apparatus on the other side of the tracks, on the west side, because it would be very difficult to get across there, you know, with all the crowds for the parade. So that's not unusual that happens.
It is a 54-year-old building, which, relatively speaking, is a young building, you know. But was this work that was recognized and part of the capital? I know the budget hawk is going to be asking this next.
This was in the capital plan, I want to think, 2014-ish, 14, 15. And the reason why we needed to do it is because, you know, there was only one dormitory area in there, and that was not, partitioned off at all, number one. And asbestos aside, we had to do that anyway.
Right.
and now with a fire department that is not, and a police department for that matter, that isn't just one gender, there needs to be some accommodations made for people of different genders. So that is really the reason why we did need to do that. And while you're going in there, you had a restroom and a shower facility that was not at all handicapped accessible. You had lips and things, so those had to come out. So that's really why this had to happen. But you know what? It generally, there were some things that 1962. You've got a block building, so it's tough. It's like a bomb shelter. That thing is built so well. But
it was built during the Cold War.
Absolutely. So that's kind of why. So the money was in the budget anyway. It's already been segregated. It's already been voted on by town meeting, approved by the capital planning committee. If we come with a little bit more, that we need a little bit more to save a lot of money in the long run, we'll do that, and we'll probably go to finance committee. The job ran over, so there'll be more about that in the next few days.
So keep an eye on the item.
Keep an eye on the item, or this station, or what have you. So
Yep. Since we're talking about...
And stay off Facebook. Get real information.
One of the reasons why I don't do it. Since we're talking about a public safety building, in speaking with a neighbor in the last couple of days, he raised some concerns and some issues over the discussion we had at town meeting with the public safety building. This is a building that's only 12 years old.
Right.
And all of a sudden we're looking at making some major structural changes to this building. Now, granted, the way it was presented in town meeting, these are actually good things, because one of the problems with the building is it's so fortress-like. It's not in any way, shape, or form on the police side welcoming to the public.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about what the plans are for that, if we could.
Well, I wouldn't use the word so much structural. There's going to be some interior changes. I don't think the footprint will probably not change, although some people would like it to change, I think. What you will visually see there structurally won't change. However, in my opinion, and since it opened, it is absolutely at least doing a disservice to the public that you don't walk into a public safety building where 24/7 you are greeted, in that first level by a police officer or a khaki officer or somebody. In our case, we just have police officers and firefighters. To me, that is not the community service that we're trying to put forward with our police department. I think everybody agrees with that. So people said at town meeting, a bitter pill to swallow. I get it. But it was not designed well. It was not put together well. And, we can all lament that and say, you know what, let's wait 20 years to fix it. But I think that, we have it's part of our financial plan right now to do it. And, let's fix it. Let's fix it, because my take has always been, the poor woman who is fleeing from a domestic issue, she should not go into that building and pick up a phone. And what's interesting to me is that you have, people that you might consider liberal and conservative that do agree on that issue. Let's fix it.
Right.
So I get it. It's a bitter pill to swallow. I forget the vote at town meeting, but I think it was overwhelming in favor to go forward.
Very much so.
So, hey, sometimes you got to cut your losses and move forward. So that's what we're doing there.
I mean, the final outcome, and this is important for the people of Wakefield, is that it will be a much friendlier, more service-oriented
absolutely,
layout.
and that's what the public will see. But from the standpoint of what how the police and fire interact with their daily work, there's a lot of issues there too. You have a lot of we've gone to where we have a lot of mission-specific components of our police department. We have a family resource officer. We have school resource officers that come in. We have domestic violence officers. They need to have somewhat of a private space where they can, interview people and where they can do some of their very sensitive work there. None of that exists.
Well, those functions didn't exist when the
didn't
building
exist
was
anymore.
designed.
So the building really wasn't even designed for that expansion. So there are some areas in there that, and the reason why we need some architectural help to figure out how to do that. Use those areas for those sort of spaces, not to mention some storage areas that we need to come up with. So that the public won't see that, but that will also provide better service and protect rights of privacy of people. So it's all good.
And the other thing, as we were talking with Greenwood, that's happened since that building was completed, is that we now have not just male police officers and firefighters, but female.
Right, we have
as well.
And I think in the main office, main building, police and fire, that's a little bit easier to handle. But in Greenwood, it is problematic.
The other thing that's been interesting here in town, and this is not, it's a town issue, but it's not a town instilled issue. People have noticed the changes to the rotary at the head of the lake.
Oh, yes.
Coming off exit 40.
Yes.
And all of the lines and demarcations and everything else, which sadly has resulted in a higher rate of accidents, even though it theoretically was supposed to do just the opposite.
Yeah, that was the plan anyway, I guess. Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Well, you know what? It is not a town project. I can't be clear enough about that. It's not a town project. It's probably making us send our police and fire and other emergency responders there more because of accidents, but it's not a town project. It's a mass highway project, or our Mass Department of Transportation.
Well, it's on Route
it's really on the Route
anyway,
128 right away, so it's there. So what's interesting to me is that I would have to say that it's about 70-30, 70 against it, 30 that really think it's a good idea and like it. So it's not completely everybody hates it. I've actually had a few people contact me.
Sounds like an overwhelming
It is
majority.
overwhelming, but it's not like 99% anyway. I know. I've had a few people call me that actually like it. I have other people that told me that we were high when we, on drugs. What drugs were you on when you designed that? We did not.
Well,
design
we should
it.
be clear. It was the Mass Department of
Transportation
Transportation that was on drugs,
it wasn't
not
us.
the town
It
of
wasn't us.
Wakefield.
But in any event, I spoke with the Mass DOT.
Yeah.
Spoke to the engineer in charge of our district. And I would use the words chagrined, sheepish. They have gotten inundated from people, not just from Wakefield, but from Reading and people that use that in their, in their business travels or in their recreational travels. Their concept was that they're trying to make the flow of these rotaries act more like roundabouts, where you stay in the middle till you go off. So it's a traffic calming sort of
Like
mechanism.
they do in England.
Like they do in England, exactly. And I said to the guy on the phone, well, you know what this is? This is a lot like European Vacation, where the family gets stuck in the middle, they can't get out. There's Big Ben. Look, kids, Big Ben.
It's been a running joke with me and my grandson. He's like, "Are we going to escape this time, Grandpa?"
Yeah, I know. So they get it. They're talking about doing some additional signage or better signage and striping. I don't know. I don't know what that merge, if you're not in only left lane merges, so you don't merge till you're in left lane. There's some very crazy sign when you come off.
Well, there's one sign that says, left lane yield only.
Yeah, well, what
which
that means
is completely contradictory to state law.
And I don't even know what that means. Anyway, left lane. I mean, what does that mean?
Well, you come down and there are two lanes, and theoretically, the left lane is going off further around the rotary.
Right.
But if you're coming off the rotary coming southbound, you get on the wrong lane initially, which is going to take you towards Camp Curtis Giles, so you have to move over anyway, and there's traffic over there, and it's a nightmare.
It is an interesting experience. My advice is take North Ave.
and quite frankly, having driven in England, the roundabouts are the way the rotary was before they monkeyed with it.
Yeah.
Everybody just knows what to do, except in the opposite direction.
Yeah. So
the rules in England are exactly the same as the rules in the state of Massachusetts. Yeah. Those entering yield to those who are already on the rotary.
Yeah, so I don't really know what Mass Highway is going to do with it. But they, I think they're struggling with maybe they didn't, it is not working as planned. Let's put it that way.
I think we need to go out there at midnight some night with a lot of black paint.
A lot of black paint.
And just have a painting party.
We'll use another TV reference like Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Make wide lanes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. I think the other thing is that those lanes are a little bit too narrow for what they're trying to do there, too. That might be an issue as well there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, there just isn't the width for all of those lanes. And the way they have them demarcated makes no sense whatsoever.
I know. Okay.
No sense whatsoever.
I have had people tell me they really like coming off 128 if they're heading north and coming into town because they come right off and they have their own designated lane to go through. But my feeling is that, well, I think you still better yield and look because still someone could be coming over like they used to, so, you know.
And state law says you have to anyway.
Yeah,
So,
I know, so.
you know, better be
I don't know,
safe than
but you know what?
crush.
Hey, it wasn't us, but we'll be happy to give you Mass Highway's number if you call.
Okay.
And we're willing to listen.
One of the things you wanted to do, in the last debate, I had called a halt to the misguided experiment of resident questions, the last debate being last week, June 8th. Excuse me. So, but you wanted to field some of the questions
I thought that might be fun.
Didn't make it
That
into
didn't
the
make it to
April
cut,
debate.
Maybe, and I haven't seen them, so it'll be interesting.
Okay, and
And
I'm just going to give the question. I'm not going
Okay.
to give the
Yeah,
name
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
don't
person
give the
because
name.
we all know that they only came from one group. But and we were talking a little bit about this before we started filming this episode. But one of the questions is: it's often stated that Lake Quantipout is Wakefield's crown jewel. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Why is it there are no restrooms? This has bothered me for years. Many communities that promote their resources to attract visitors have these facilities. You know, and that's a good point because we did at one time have restrooms at both Colonel Connolly
And
at the town beach on the
That's
other
on
end
the other
where
end,
the
yes,
playground
yeah.
is today.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Plus, we have Hall Park, which does have a one or two porta potties,
well,
which is really kind of
let's not call
inadequate,
those. Let's
but
not call them restrooms. Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah.
What are the thoughts here? Because we are trying to promote more people coming to the lake, coming to the downtown as a result of being at the lake. Are there any plans to replace those now missing restrooms?
Yeah. Well, I'm not so sure I would categorize them as plans, but there's interest. Let's put it that way. I think personally, and we'll be looking into this. Probably, you know, I think the two areas that would be the best suited, although, you know, a lot of activities occur on the lake, and you know, like for instance, the 4th of July celebration, there'll be a lot of porta potties, double from what were there last year,
Right.
because there's long lines, people live there all day. That aside, I think that probably the two areas are Hall Park area, Vetsfield, because of the softball games, and then
And the farmers market.
and the farmers market, and up at the other end, the Colonel Connolly end of the lake, where you do have a playground up there and people that are enjoying
Right.
it as well, and you still have the remnants of a beach. And I think if we were ever to reopen that, and there are some thoughts that maybe someday we could, if we were able to clean up the lake and actually make a nice little beach up there. There's another community not too far from us that does some sort of a filtration system for the beach area. So, you know, I've kind of thought about that too. But you got to staff it. So
The
I
solar
think,
bees?
No, not solar bees. It's actually something different, but
Oh, okay.
akin to that idea, I guess. So I think that there is some interest in that, and the DPW director and I have been kind of talking about that, and kind of maybe we'll come up with some sort of a cost study that we're not going to spend any money on, but something that will, you know, figure that out. When you look towards the Hall Park area, a couple of things come to mind. You do have the farmers market, as you mentioned, the softball games. We certainly have to make sure these are safe,
Right.
and that they're clean. So there is that added expense. But if you were to get, you know, by that issue, there is the issue in that area. If you recall, that there was the cleanup, the contamination from the old,
Power plant.
old power
Yes,
plant. Let's
back
call
in
it
the
let's call it
20s.
the old power
That's
plant.
what it was.
So there are some restrictions in that area about what we can do. So if we were to remove soil that was contaminated,
Yeah.
that could also add significantly to the cost. You'd have to bring in the sewer line and water and sewer line. So those are things that we are looking at it. So I wouldn't say that it's on the drawing board, but it's talked about in the drawing board room. Let's put it that way. The other thing is, in the Board of Appeals decision for Cumberland Farms, people can use the Cumberland Farms bathroom. That is in the Board of Appeals decision. However, if you're around up, you got to cross Main Street, so it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
So it's being thought about.
Because those of a certain age will remember we had
Yeah.
2 town beaches
Yeah.
not too many years ago. The so-called older
Right.
kids and the adults went to the lower common area.
Yeah.
And there was a beach house changing
Yep.
area there as
Yep.
well at the time, which is now used to store equipment up at Forest Glade.
Oh, okay.
It was moved up there.
Okay.
And then the little kids' beach was Colonel Conley,
Yeah.
which is still appropriate with the playground that's there.
Yeah. And I remember buying that, Brian, your tag
Yep,
for like a quarter of the season, or maybe 50 cents for the season. It was
Yep.
nothing.
yep.
Yeah.
And it was great.
It was great. The
You
good old
know?
days. Yeah.
So good times.
Yeah.
But the other aspect of the lake, and we were talking about it a little bit, and we'll talk more about it in a show just about the lake in August, just to give you a heads up. But the lake is the most choked with weeds and the dirtiest I've seen in probably at least a decade. And I've only seen the cove end. So I haven't been around the perimeter with the kayak yet. I have my grandson in the kayak, so he's still getting used to it. But just awful. Just awful.
Yeah, I know. Well, the Board of Selectmen did appoint a committee to study the lake under the leadership of our town engineer, Mike Collins, who knows, I think, more about water than anybody does in this whole community. And they're actually compiling their initial report.
Yep.
And actually, I'm hoping that the selectmen can at least hear a little bit about that at our next meeting on June 27th. So it is possible where, we had a lot of people, had an outpouring of people that served, a lot of people, some scientific engineering backgrounds
right.
that got on that committee. So there'll be information out there, and nothing's going to happen without there being a lot of public input on this one, because it is a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But but just to remind people, that will be a full show in August. Let's see. This is another one, and being a historian myself, this one's hopefully it'll be an interesting answer. Are any of you
Pressure's on.
disturbed by the rampant rate of historic teardowns taking place throughout Wakefield, and have you read the preservation plan for the town of Wakefield adopted in the master plan in 2001? I think part of this comes from the older homes that were taken down as part of Brightview. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't know any other historic homes
Well, I think
that have
that
been raised for any particular reason.
I'm going to say that over the last 6-7 years or so, probably 3 or 4 hearings have been held regarding the raising of a historic home. And that's in front of the Historic Commission, and they do, that is in our bylaw, and there is a delay to go through to see if there's someone that wants to buy the structure and move it, or if there's anything that can be done. So that's happened in every case.
Yep.
So there is the ability for that to happen.
Including the Brightview.
Including the
part.
Brightview, that happened there
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that there were people looking to see, and there was one home in particular that people seemed to be very interested in. And I think there was even some attempts to try to move that. The problem is that oftentimes some of these older homes are not in any condition to be moved. They've really been let go, beat
Right.
up. They're already falling apart. Maybe some of them are mold-ridden. People are getting rid of them for a reason. So I don't think that you can say, it's not taken lightly. They've lived their life. So am I concerned about it? I think I would be. I think that was part of the question. I would be concerned if there was a rampant issue of it, but I think a few over the last 5 or 6 years isn't rampant. Interestingly enough, tonight being the 15th of June, there's a public hearing tonight in front of the Historic Commission regarding a house on Church Street. So, there is that process where people can come and make their feelings known and try to find a way to, save or move the property. In my other life, years ago, as an attorney, I represented a client in a city north of here that actually moved a historic home, jacked it up and moved it in the city we were in to a vacant lot that he purchased. So it has been done. People have done it. That was quite something to see a house being moved into a city with some very old and narrow streets and somehow brought and dropped on a foundation. Very interesting to see happen. So,
and I know it's an issue that's more prevalent, especially in New England or along the eastern seaboard, the original colonies. But there are also other mechanisms for protecting the homes, which a lot of homeowners don't take advantage of, such as getting them listed on the historic register.
Right.
Which brings another level of protection to a building if it's of significant historical value.
But there are sometimes homeowners that and maybe it's not of a significant value, don't want that anyway. They don't want to do that anyway.
Right.
So it's kind of it is in a certain extent up to them too.
Right.
I mean, there are some private property rights. As much as people don't like to hear that.
It boils down to, if you aren't on the register, when it comes time for this to be considered for another project, it's game over.
It's game over. Yeah.
So hopefully people who have historic homes will take the initiative.
I know.
But if they don't, there's
But
very little
particularly
the town
there's some
can
of the
do.
homes where we have had some giants in Massachusetts history born. There's the Volpe House on Water Street. So there are some things that we'd like to.
The BB Mansion.
The BB Mansion. There are some places that we certainly are very worthy of being saved.
The Richardson block.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Solano, Richardson, and that crowd. So we only have about a minute and a half left.
There we go. See, I'm getting off easy.
You didn't think we were going to have that much to talk about this month. What can we look? Generally, we take July off, which I think we're going to do this year. So we won't be back until August. What can people look forward to over the next 2 months?
From what's going on in town?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more items going on with the continued building up or creation of a cultural district and trying to bring some things into the downtown. First Thursdays are still occurring with the Cultural Center. Every Thursday you have Plaza Jazz.
Right.
We have some movies on the lake coming up. I think next week there's a movie on the lake, sponsored by WCAT and our rec department.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
And
so
if you want to see the schedule, just go to the website.
We are trying to make Wakefield an experience.
Yep.
And bring people to our downtown and experience the beauty of this town. Hopefully spend some money in the businesses and help out. And interestingly enough, we had a charming young girl come to the Selectmen's meeting on Monday, and her idea is that, and it's Jessica Hunt, about having a town slogan contest. So that's something that I'll be reaching out to her and figuring out how we're going to do that. And could be something that we'll put on the website and Facebook and get some information, and I think that'll be kind of fun.
Fantastic.
So
fantastic.
There's always something going on.
To.
Great.
Yep. Don't forget that we have July 4th coming up with the parade and the fireworks. I assume there's fireworks this year. And also, don't forget July 19th is the special election for the open seat.
Right.
For the open seat. Please turn out in big numbers. Yeah. We want to be wrong on our predictions.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're all over the place. So we'll see you again in August.
Right. And
Thank
enjoy
you for
the
joining
4th
us.
and enjoy Wakefield.
Enjoy the summer. Thank you for seeing us. Okay.